Here in Central Ohio, it's pretty much the only way to go, by car. The average Franklin County resident travels at least 35 miles each day, and overwhelmingly, they get where they're going in a car. That means all those people pay for maintenance, they pay for insurance, they pay for registration, and they pay for gas. The average Ohio driver spends between $2,000 and $2,500 each year on gas alone.
Cars are incredibly convenient, but they're sometimes a pain.
A car is a burden for a lot of people. A car is a cost center.
You know what else we spend on cars? Time. The stress and the headaches of rush hour traffic are only growing around here. That's why Ohio's racing to solve a mobility problem. Public transportation has long been a secondary form of travel in the state. Trains, buses, bikes, all take a backseat.
We want to have a world-class transportation system where people can move around, and they need to be able to do that in multiple ways.
In this NBC4 digital special, we're going to show you all the ways Central Ohio is investing to move people in and around the region. Welcome to Columbus 2.0, the way we move. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jared Smalley. Transportation fuels the economy. If you can get people to places efficiently and affordably, then companies tend to find your place. In Ohio, in particular here in Central Ohio, with the population increasing, local and national transportation experts agree it's time for change.
Transit is the economic heart of the city. The city doesn't work without transit. In order to make it possible for people to continue driving when they want to drive, we need to make sure that public transit is fast, frequent, safe, reliable, clean.
To see what good public transit looks like, it makes a believer out of you. It really does.
Well, let's begin with trains. And Columbus has a unique history with train travel. First, it was horse-drawn train cars in the late 1800s, and then electric cable cars were how people got around Columbus. But by the 1960s, buses and cars had taken over and trains were left to decay. For regional rail travel, the final passenger rail trains departed Columbus in 1979 after the federal government canceled the service here. And if it feels like we've had this discussion before, you're right.
Establishing passenger rail service.
Passenger rail.
Passenger route.
Passenger rail.
Passenger trains.
Passenger rail project.
Now, there's a lot of work if that Amtrak expansion is going to come here to Ohio.
Columbus remains the largest American city without any passenger rail program, not even in the city's suburbs. After years of lobbying, there is a renewed push to get Columbus back on tracks.
That train is dead. I said it during the campaign. It is dead. We are not going to have it.
In 2011, former Ohio Governor John Kasich famously declined $400 million in federal funding for high-speed rail development in Ohio. He called it too expensive, with no proof that people would actually use it.
There's a way this works, and it works all around Ohio. It just hasn't been done here. And it hasn't been done here in part because of politics.
We're just kind of off the beaten path. Columbus, unfortunately, just sits off of many of the major branch lines between Chicago and, say, Washington, D.C. or Chicago and New York. So we were just kind of cut out of those conversations.
John Esterly is a train engineer by day, but also serves as the executive director of All Aboard Ohio, a group aiming to sway Ohio government to invest in passenger rail.
I think one of the biggest challenges that we face, particularly here in Ohio, is the political will to make it happen. We have pretty abysmal Amtrak and passenger rail service here in Ohio, so I think a lot of our legislators just don't understand what it looks like when it works well.
Two new Ohio-focused commuter rail lines have been approved for further study by the federal government. The first, the Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Dayton corridor, the so-called 3C and D line. It would connect Ohio's four largest cities. The proposal calls for 3 to 5 daily trips on that route, with top speeds nearing 80 miles per hour. Governor DeWine has previously voiced support for passenger rail, but several state lawmakers say they're concerned about cost.
See what studies show, and also see, frankly, where the federal government's going. My position has been that we shouldn't take a position on it other than let's let it proceed and see where we go.
There's folks like me who are less interested in talking about the train and other members who are not. So let's at least take a baby step here. Let's dip our toe in the water and see what we think.
I think the passenger rail actually opens up a lot of opportunities for a lot of people. I think everyone's mindset of what does mass transit look like and what are all the modes that we can get and how do we reduce the volume that we already have on our streets and roads. It's just another avenue.
The second project under review is the Cleveland-Toledo-Detroit line, the CTD. The Ohio Rail Development Commission is a state agency with a board appointed by the governor to promote freight and passenger rail systems. In a statement to NBC4, the commission says it's working its way through the analysis process for both of those lines, but does not have an update on how soon actual trains could be on the track. Those studies are federally funded. But if the studies continue to progress, the state will have to match a portion of funding to bring those rail lines to reality.
One of the biggest challenges that we have in the advocacy community is selling a dream when we don't really have the opportunity in our state to demonstrate what that looks like. Now, we compare to some of our peer states, primarily Michigan, who's embraced passenger rail. Just using those examples of other states that may have embraced some of these decisions a little bit earlier in their history than Ohio has the opportunity to, just to show what can be done, again, given that political will.
Other projects have been proposed to connect major hubs in the Midwest, including a line from Chicago to Columbus, but it's unclear how close to reality those lines are. It's currently a marathon of meetings, surveys, and budget strategy, and like many processes in government, wheels turn slowly.
Multi-million-dollar infrastructure projects, and these things take time to plan. There's a lot of partners. This is commuter rail. We're talking about multi-region in Ohio, multi-state partners across, connecting Chicago to Pittsburgh through the state of Ohio. That's a lot of partners involved.
If Columbus wants to continue growing effectively and continue being a magnet for talent all over the country and all around the world, transit needs to be at the heart of the economic development strategy. And it's not about making everyone take transit. It's about using transit at the margin in order to make your transportation system more effective so that people can continue driving when they need to drive.
Jeff Tumlin is the former executive director of the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency. Amy Lee is the deputy of transportation for the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. She previously worked for the Chicago Transit Authority, overseeing bus and train operation there. They gathered in Columbus in June for a transportation forum sponsored by the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, helping local leaders solve our transit trouble.
It's very complicated. You don't see a whole lot of rail line extensions right now anymore, and that is because of the abundance of cars. A lot of people do think of cars as their first step. We are experiencing a lot of the same things that you're experiencing in Columbus.
Making public transit effective can be a lot cheaper than widening roads or highways. And it also creates land value. Land becomes a lot more valuable when it's more connected to other land. It's kind of the business that we're in mobility, is actually creating land value.
In the state's transportation budget, the Rail Commission had petitioned the state to rejoin the Midwest Interstate Passenger Rail Commission, but membership was later removed from the budget. But rail advocates are hoping to see regional lines throughout the Midwest established, which could connect Columbus to Chicago, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, among others.
It seems the stars are aligning. Passenger rail, it's not only about going to Columbus to Chicago to watch a baseball game. It's more about creating economic development opportunities for the Midwest communities in the region.
The proposed lines would call for several stops, including in places like Delaware and Crestline, north of Columbus. Ohio already has established rail lines running across the state and directly between the state's largest cities. So building new tracks would not be needed, and those tracks would be shared between passenger and freight companies.
A lot of the big concerns that we hear about, the cost of laying new rail, of eminent domain, issues like that, we just simply won't see here in Ohio. Many of the routes utilize existing Amtrak corridors, so there's really even no need for upgrades. It's just a matter of allotting time for another train to operate.
That's why I think Ohio is honestly one of the best states for passenger rail revitalization.
Hayden Clarkin is a civil engineer based in New York who's extensively studied rail development around the world. He's become popular online as the transit guy, and he says Ohio's rail situation is of national interest, but there's some major crossings to clear.
Why we don't have the passenger rail we used to have is because we sold them all to freight rail companies, we call them class ones, right? The big ones we're thinking about. That is a really big problem, as they don't really come to play ball. There's really very little incentive to them outside of some monies that they get from a transit agency, Amtrak or whatnot, to do it, and so therefore they usually shut us out. We fight a lot, unfortunately, with priority, whether they get priority or not. This is why Amtrak is always delayed, especially outside of routes that Amtrak doesn't own. Amtrak only owns 3% of the tracks that it runs on.
It's not just about a train, it's about economic development, it's about jobs, it's about connectivity.
In 2021, the federal government announced its biggest investment in passenger rail ever, $66 billion. Amtrak serves as the nation's primary passenger rail service, carrying a record 33 million passengers last year. They service 500 destinations across 46 states, but Ohio and Columbus in particular remain a blind spot.
Reliable, relevant service is successful all over the country. And it just, because of the quirk of 1979, we don't have that here in Columbus to build from, but it can be built.
If Amtrak's return to Columbus is eventually approved, the city plans to build the downtown train station near the site of the old Union Station at the Greater Columbus Convention Center. The famous Union Station arch now sits at McPherson Commons next to Nationwide Arena.
Right under our feet right now are the actual tracks. They're the original tracks that were here the last time passenger rail served Columbus.
And studies show about 73,000 passengers per year would use that station.
Those visiting or coming through the station would enter and exit right in the space that is currently Starbucks. You'd get your ticket, go down to the platform, hop your train, and you're on your way. But the proximity to the neighborhood around and many of the attractions people want to see when they come to Columbus makes this an ideal spot.
Everything you shouldn't do while driving, you can do safely on an Amtrak train, including sleep, read. So it's really about productivity and comfort and choice, more than just, is it faster than driving? And with the population growth and the good things that are happening here in central Ohio, this would be a great market for us to be in.
Mobility is everyone's business, and business success depends on mobility. That's why the rail conversation leads to the larger conversation about growing Central Ohio into a stronger economic power.
One of the things that I always talk about when people say, well, we don't need rail because we're not a big city yet, is, well, if rail takes so long for us to build, do you want to wait until when we're at that point?
I think people want options. Currently we are a very car-centric state. If you could hop on a train and be checking your email and maybe taking a nap, or just not dealing with the stress of driving a car.
Really, this is about connecting people from across the state and region to what we have to offer here in Columbus. Some of our best and most exciting attractions are just a train ride away.
When we return, we're going to break down the massive Linkus investment Columbus passed last year, what exactly voters are getting, and when will rapid bus service arrive. Plus, an update on the latest road construction projects in Central Ohio and what to expect from the new airport terminal. That's all ahead on Columbus 2.0. Welcome back. For more than 50 years, the Central Ohio Transit Authority has provided bus service throughout Columbus and Central Ohio. They deliver 12 million trips each year along more than 40 dedicated routes, but it will soon be much more. Last year, Columbus voters approved the Linkus initiative, approving a 0.5% sales tax increase to pay for it. COTA estimates it could be an $8 billion total investment. And now, the next 2 decades for COTA look much different.
A lot of people would say, we use COTA all the time if it was faster. And that required us, as we were going to the levy, to really admit that public transportation could be better here. We're building a system that works just as well as using a car.
COTA says the Linkus plan will deliver 45% more service and will bring Central Ohio its first ever BRT, Bus Rapid Transit. That involves creating dedicated bus lanes on major roadways, and those buses are typically larger, increasing rider capacity. And traffic signals along those corridors will give priority to the bus lines.
It's premium transit service. It's a dedicated right-of-way or dedicated guide, so it's not in mixed traffic. You're going to want that transit service to be reliable, and you're going to want to show up at the stop and know that bus is coming on time when it says it is.
The three main BRT lines are still under design. First will be the West Broad Corridor, which extends past 270 on the west side. It would include 17 stops, and construction on that line could begin early next year.
I live on the far west side, for example. It takes me 25 to 30 minutes to get downtown in the morning by vehicle. If I get on a BRT, I'll be able to start my work. I'm going to save myself time. I'm going to save my vehicle wear and tear. And I'm going to be able to do that just as efficiently as if I was behind the wheel of my own car.
The East Main Line will be next in development, providing service from downtown stops like Nationwide Arena and the state capitol out through the east side to Bexley, Whitehall, and Reynoldsburg. The East Side line has a projected completion in 2029. And finally, the Northwest BRT, connecting the Dublin and Worthington areas with a route to downtown. That line remains early in the design phase, with hopes for completed construction by 2031. At least 2 more rapid transit lines could be identified soon.
I think in some of those corridors, Columbus has changed their zoning to try to allow for greater density along those routes, and that may allow more folks to use the bus routes and have more frequent higher quality service along those routes.
What you'll see is bus rapid transit as that first step to building that market. And so you do have to see somebody like a CODA working very closely with all the roadway agencies to think about innovative design of the roadway, making sure that transit is visible, maybe by having a bus station or maybe markers on the street that indicate that the bus might have priority in this lane.
But the Linkus plan goes beyond buses. It also calls for more than 500 miles of sidewalks, bikeways, and trails. Protected bikeways and pedestrian safety have grown into major priorities for city leaders, and Columbus is still working through its proposed Capitol Line project, adding bike and pedestrian priority throughout downtown and into Franklinton.
Bicyclists are vulnerable users on our roadways, and just quite frankly, everyone needs to feel safe. It takes infrastructure to do that. So, whether that's a separated trail facility or a buffered bike lane on a roadway, if people see other people traveling via bike, they say, oh, I could do that.
We don't want to necessarily say if you build it, they will come, but we know that if we provide a solution that is just as efficient as using their car, over time people will make what we call mode shift.
Up next, a look at Central Ohio's expanding roadways and some of the most pressing projects to watch in the years to come. That is next on Columbus 2.0. Welcome back to Columbus 2.0. We have spent much of this show talking about how Central Ohio leaders aim to get more people out of their cars and into public transportation. But the reality remains, cars are the first choice. Governor DeWine just signed a 2-year, $11 billion transportation budget into law, and now ODOT leadership says that money is targeted for some critical local upgrades. Summer in Ohio doubles.
It's a short-term pain for a longer-term gain.
As orange barrel season.
Some projects don't seem like they're very short, but in the grand scheme of things, most of them are.
3 major projects are underway right now in Central Ohio in far different phases. First, the downtown 70-71 split. It has been seemingly under construction for generations. And at the moment, the ramp from 315 South to 70 East is closed, but ODOT says the project is gaining steam.
On the west side of 70-71 is really wrapping up. We're going to be opening up the Front Street Bridge at the end of this summer and early fall, and then the large flyover bridge that takes you from downtown out over the railroad, over the river, and touches down at Green Lawn will be opened up by the end of the year. Working on High Street next. Once Front Street's open, we'll have that being replaced, and then we'll continue over the next coming years, but the traffic impact should be much less.
Next, the surrounding roads to the Intel site in Licking County. 2 years ago, the state approved $90 million to support widening and updating roads that connect the site. And many of those roads are in dire need.
It will have a very positive impact on the area and overcoming the traffic growth that we're experiencing and expect to experience in the coming years. In the near future, you'll see some improvements of intersections and sections of local roadways, county roadways being advanced.
The third massive project, the redevelopment of US 23 between Worthington and Waldo. ODOT says the road is currently operating at more than 30% above its capacity, and ODOT recently completed its study of a plan to reduce the number of traffic signals along that stretch from 39 to 7. That entire project is estimated to cost as much as $1.9 billion.
That's not something we can do all at once or overnight. So we're looking to advance individual pieces and parts, say $50 million for this location or $100 million for that one, build that, get the benefit, and continue to build the others in parallel.
One of the biggest issues facing Central Ohio roads, heavy loads. ODOT says freight traffic has increased sharply since the pandemic, at least partly due to the increase in online shopping. And those trucks are forcing ODOT to make some major planning changes and reinforce their ultimate goal, to make all roads safer.
We spend a lot of effort to make sure this investment is wise. We're trying to make sure that these address safety concerns, they repair existing infrastructure. A lot of the bridges and pavement out there is original to the interstate, and also that we're shooting for where the traffic levels are going to be in the future. We're not looking just to fix where it is today, but where the truck volumes will be and the commuter volumes will be down the road 20, 30 years in the future.
Our solicitation of comments from the general public and where their concerns lie in terms of what the future has in store and also the present conditions. But we have a lot of good projects in the pipeline to respond to the immediate growth, but also incorporating the new growth that's expected with a lot of the new developments around town.
And a discussion about transportation in Central Ohio is incomplete without the rapidly changing John Glenn International Airport. The new terminal project is well underway now, with a goal to open in early 2029. The new terminal is located at the site of the former Blue parking lot. They'll expand by 7 gates to a total of 36. It will feature 1 central security checkpoint instead of the 3 at the current terminal, with the ability to accommodate more than 50% more passengers than today. A new 5,000-space parking garage is also planned. And yes, Columbus aspires to someday host a direct flight to Europe. A new terminal could allow Columbus the international capability and passenger load needed to make that happen. In the meantime, the next few years will be a change for travelers. Parking is more limited with the red and green lots, plus the garage next to the current terminal. A temporary cell phone lot quickly fills up typically. An Uber, cab, or drop-off pickup is likely the best plan for flyers to get to and from the airport. Thank you for joining us for this look at how Columbus can stay mobile as the city continues to grow. For Columbus 2.0, I'm Jared Smalley.